Body by Dorothy L. Sayers. Part 2. Lord Peter finished a Scarlatti sonata and sat looking thoughtfully at his own hands. The fingers were long and muscular, with wide flat joints and square tips. When he was playing, his rather hard grey eyes softened, and his long, indeterminate mouth hardened in compensation. At no other time had he any pretensions to good looks, and at all times he was spoilt by a long, narrow chin and a long, receding forehead, accentuated by the brushed-back sleekness of his tow-coloured hair. Labour papers, softening down the chin, caricatured him as a typical aristocrat. "That's a wonderful instrument," said Parker. "It ain't so bad. But Scarlatti wants a harpsichord. Piano's too modern, all thrills and overtones. No good for our job, Parker. Have you come to any conclusion?" "The man in the bath," said Parker methodically, "was not a well-off man, careful of his personal appearance. He was a labouring man, unemployed, but who had only recently lost his employment. He'd been tramping about looking for a job when he met with his end. Somebody killed him and washed him and scented him and shaved him in order to disguise him and put him into Thip's bath without leaving a trace. Conclusion: the murderer was a powerful man, since he killed him with a single blow to the neck. A man of cool head and masterly intellect, since he did all that ghastly business without leaving a mark. A man of wealth and refinement, since he had all the apparatus of an elegant toilet handy, and a man of bizarre and almost perverted imagination, as is shown in the two horrible touches of putting the body in the bath and of adorning it with a pair of pince-nez. "He is a poet of crime," said Wimsey. "By the way, your difficulty about the pince-nez cleared up. Obviously it never belonged to the body." "But that only makes a fresh puzzle. One can't suppose the murderer left them in that obliging manner as a clue to his own identity." "Well, we can hardly suppose that. I'm afraid this man possessed what most criminals lack, a sense of humour." "Rather macabre humour." "True. But a man who can afford to be humorous at all in such circumstances is a terrible fellow. I wonder what he did with the body in between murdering it and depositing it at Chez Thip's. Then there are more questions. How did he get it there, and why? Was it brought in at the door, as Sagamore Hart suggests, or through the window, as we think, on the not very adequate testimony of a smudge on the window-sill? Had the murderer accomplices? Is little Thip's really in it, or is the girl? Don't do to put the notion out of court merely because Sugg inclines to it. Even idiots occasionally speak the truth, accidentally. If not, why was Thip selected for such an abominable practical joke? Has anybody got a grudge against Thip's? Who are the people in the other flats? We must find out that. Does Thip's play the piano at midnight over their heads, or damage the reputation of the staircase by bringing home dubiously respectable ladies? Are these unsuccessful architects thirsting for his blood? Damn it all, Parker, there must be a motive somewhere. Can't have a crime without a motive, you know. A madman? With a deuced lot of method in his madness. He hasn't made a mistake, not one, unless leaving hairs in the corpse's mouth can be called a mistake. Well, anyhow, it's not Levy, you're right there. I say, old thing, neither your man nor mine has left much clue to go on, has he? When there don't seem to be any motives knocking about either. And we seem to be 2 suits of clothes short in last night's work. Sir Reuben makes tracks without so much as a fig leaf, and a mysterious individual turns up with a pince-nez, which is quite useless for purposes of decency. Dash it all! If only I had some good excuse for taking up this body case officially. The telephone bell rang. The silent Bunter, whom the other two had almost forgotten, padded across to it. "It's an elderly lady, my lord. I think she's deaf. I can't make her hear anything, but she's asking for your lordship." Lord Peter seized the receiver and yelled into it, a hello that might have cracked the vulcanite. He listened for some minutes with an incredulous smile, which gradually broadened into a grin of delight. At length he screamed, "All right! All right!" several times, and rang off. "By Jove! Spotted old bird! It's old Mrs. Phipps, deaf as a post, never used the phone before, but determined. Ha! Perfect Napoleon. The incomparable Sugg has made a discovery and arrested little Phipps. Old lady abandoned in flat. Phipps' last shriek to her was, "Tell Lord Peter Wimsey." Old girl undaunted. Wrestles with telephone book. Wakes up the people at the exchange. Won't take no for an answer. Not being able to hear it. Gets through and says, "Will I do what I can?" Says she would feel safe in the hands of a real gentleman. Oh, Parker, Parker, I could kiss her, I really could. As Phipps says, I'll write to her instead. No, hang it, Parker, we'll go round. Bunter, get your infernal machine and the magnesium. I say, we'll all go into partnership, pool the 2 cases and work 'em together. You shall see my body tonight, Parker, and I'll look for your wandering Jew tomorrow. I feel so happy I shall explode. Oh, Sugg, Sugg, how art thou suggified! Bunter, my shoes. I say, Parker, I suppose yours are rubber-soled. Not? Oh, you mustn't go out like that. We'll lend you a pair. Gloves? Here. Now my stick, my torch, the lamp-black, the forceps, knife, pill-boxes, all complete. Certainly, my lord. Oh, Bunter, don't look offended. I mean no harm. I believe in you. I trust you. What money have I got? Oh, that'll do. I knew a man once, Parker, who let a world-famous poisoner slip through his fingers because of a machine on the underground that took nothing but pennies. There was a queue at the booking office, and the man at the barrier stopped him, and while they were arguing about accepting a £5 note, which was all he had, for a twopenny ride to Baker Street, the criminal had sprung into a circle train and was next heard of in Constantinople, disguised as an elderly Church of England clergyman touring with his niece. Are we all ready? Go! They stepped out, Bunter carefully switching off the lights behind them. As they emerged into the gloom and gleam of Piccadilly, Wimsey stopped short with a little exclamation. "Wait a second, I've thought of something. If Sugg is there, he's going to make trouble. I must short-circuit him." He ran back, and the other 2 men employed the first few minutes of his absence in capturing a taxi. Inspector Sugg and a subordinate Cerberus were on guard at 59 Queen Caroline Mansions, and showed no disposition to admit unofficial inquirers. Parker, indeed, they could not easily turn away, but Lord Peter found himself confronted with a surly manner, and what Lord Beaconsfield described as a masterly inactivity. It was in vain that Lord Peter pleaded that he had been retained by Mrs. Phipps on behalf of her son. "Retained?" said Sugg with a snort. "She'll be retained if she doesn't look out. Shouldn't wonder if she wasn't in it herself. Only she's so deaf she's no good for anything at all." "Look here, Inspector, what's the use of being so bally obstructive? You'd much better let me in, you know. You know I'll get there in the end. Dash it all, it's not as if I was taking the bread out of your children's mouths. Nobody paid me for finding Lord Attenbury's emeralds for you. It's my duty to keep out the public, and it's going to stay out." "I never said anything about your keeping out of the public," said Lord Peter easily, sitting down on the staircase to thrash the matter out comfortably. "Though I've no doubt Pussyfoot's a good thing on principle, if not exaggerated. The golden mean, Sugg, as Aristotle says, keeps you from being a golden ass. You ever been a golden ass, Sugg? I have. It'd take a whole rose garden to cure me. Sugg, you are my garden of beautiful roses. My own rose, my one rose. That's you. I'm not going to stay any longer talking to you. It's bad enough. Oh, drat that telephone. Here, Cawthorne, go and see what it is. If that old catamaran will let you into the room. Shutting herself up there and screaming. It's enough to make a man give up crime and take to edging and ditching." The constable came back. "It's from the yard, sir." He coughed apologetically. "The chief says every facility is to be given to Lord Peter Wimsey, sir." He stood apart noncommittally, glazing his eyes. "5 aces. The chief's a dear friend of my mother's. No go, Sugg. It's no good bucking you've got a full house. I'm going to make it a bit fuller." He walked in with his followers. The body had been removed a few hours previously, and when the bathroom and the whole flat had been explored by the naked eye and the camera of a competent Bunter, it became evident that the real problem of the household was old Mrs. Phipps. Her son and servant had both been removed, and it appeared that they had no friends in town, beyond a few business acquaintances of Phipps's, whose very addresses the old lady did not know. The other flats in the building were occupied, respectively, by a family of 7, at present departed to winter abroad, an elderly Indian colonial of ferocious manners, who lived alone with an Indian manservant, and a highly respectable family on the 3rd floor, whom the disturbance over their heads had outraged to the last degree. The husband, indeed, when appealed to by Lord Peter, showed a little human weakness, but Mrs. Appledore, appearing suddenly in a warm dressing-gown, extricated him from the difficulties in which he was carelessly wandering. "I'm sorry. I'm afraid we can't interfere in any way. This is a very unpleasant business. I'm afraid I didn't catch your name. We've always found it better not to be mixed up with the police. Of course, if the Phippses are innocent, and I'm sure I hope they are, it's very unfortunate for them. But I must say that the circumstances seem to me most suspicious, and to Theophilus too. And I should not like to have it said that we had assisted murderers. We might even be supposed to be accessories. Of course, you are young, Mr. "This is Lord Peter Wimsey, my dear," said Theophilus mildly. She was unimpressed. "Ah, yes. I believe you're distantly related to my late cousin, the Bishop of Carisbrooke. Poor man. He was always being taken in by impostors. He died without ever learning any better. I imagine you take after him, Lord Peter." I doubt it. So far as I know, he's only a connection, though it's a wise child that knows its own father. I congratulate you, dear lady, on taking after the other side of the family. You'll forgive my butting in upon you like this in the middle of the night, though, as you say, it's all in the family, and I'm sure I'm very much obliged to you, and for permitting me to admire that awfully fetching thing you've got on. Now, don't worry, Mr. Appledore. I'm thinking the best thing I can do is to trundle the old lady down to my mother and take her out of your way. Otherwise you might be finding your Christian feelings getting the better of you some fine day, and there's nothing like Christian feelings for upsetting a man's domestic comfort. Good night, sir. Good night, dear lady. It's simply ripping of you to let me drop in like this." "Well," said Mrs. Appledore, as the door closed behind him. "And I thank for goodness and grace that on my birth have smiled," said Lord Peter, "and taught me to be bestily impertinent when I choose. Cat!" 2 a.m. saw Lord Peter Wimsey arrive in a friend's car at the Dower House, Denver Castle, in company with a deaf and aged lady and an antique portmanteau. "Oh, it's very nice to see you, dear," said the Dowager Duchess placidly. She was a small, plump woman with perfectly white hair and exquisite hands. In feature she was unlike her second son, as she was like him in character. Her black eyes twinkled cheerfully, and her manners and movements were marked with a neat and rapid decision. She wore a charming wrap from Liberty's, and sat watching Lord Peter eat cold beef and cheese, as though his arrival in such incongruous circumstances and company were the most ordinary event possible, which with him, indeed, it was. "Have you got the old lady to bed?" "Oh, yes, dear. Such a striking old person, isn't she? And very courageous. She tells me she's never been in a motor car before, but she thinks you're a very nice lad, dear. That careful of her, you remind her of her own son. Oh, poor little Mr. Phipps. Whatever made your friend the inspector think he could have murdered anybody?" "My friend the inspector? No more, thank you, mother. Is determined to prove the intrusive person in Phipps's bath is Sir Reuben Levy, who disappeared mysteriously from his house last night. His line of reasoning is, we've lost a middle-aged gentleman without any clothes on in Park Lane. We've found a middle-aged gentleman without any clothes on in Battersea. Therefore they're one and the same person, QED, and put little Phipps in quod." "You're very elliptical, dear. Why should Mr. Phipps be arrested if they are the same?" "Suggs must arrest somebody. But there is one odd little bit of evidence come out which goes a long way to support Suggs' theory, only that I know it to be no-go by the evidence of my own eyes. Last night at about 9:15 a young woman was strolling up Battersea Park Road for purposes best known to herself, when she saw a gentleman in a fur coat and top hat sauntering along under an umbrella, looking at the names of all the streets. He looked a bit out of place, so, not being a shy girl, you see, she walked up to him and said, "Good evening." "Can you tell me, please," says the mysterious stranger, "whether this street leads into Prince of Wales Road?" She said it did, and further asked him, in a jocular manner, what he was doing with himself the rest of the night, and all the rest of it. Only she wasn't altogether so explicit about that part of the conversation, because she was unburdening her heart to Sugg, you see. He's paid by a grateful country to be very pure, high-minded in his ideals. Anyway, the old boy said he couldn't attend to her just then, as he had an appointment. "I've got to go and see a man, my dear," was how he put it, and he walked on up Alexandra Avenue towards Prince of Wales Road. She was staring after him, still rather surprised, when she was joined by a friend of hers, who said, "It's no good wasting your time with him, that's Levy. I knew him when I lived in the West End, and the girls used to call him Pea Green Incorruptible." Friend's name suppressed owing to implications of story, but girl vouches for what was said. She thought no more about it till the milkman brought news this morning of the excitement at Queen Caroline Mansions. Then she went round, though not liking the police as a rule, and asked the man there whether the dead gentleman had a beard and glasses. Told he had glasses but no beard, she incautiously said, "Oh, then it isn't him." And the man said, "Isn't who?" and collared her. That's her story. Sugg's delighted, of course, and quadded Phipps on the strength of it. "Dear me! I hope the poor girl won't get into trouble." "I shouldn't think so. Phipps is the one that's going to get it in the neck. Besides, he's done a silly thing." I got that out of Sugg too, though he was sitting tight on the information. Seems Phipps got into a confusion about the train he took back from Manchester. Said first he got home at 10:30. Then they pumped Gladys Horrocks, who let out he wasn't back until 11:45. Then Phipps, being asked to explain the discrepancy, stammers and bungles and says first he missed the train. Then Suggs makes inquiries at St. Pancras and discovers that he left a bag in the cloakroom there at 10. Phipps, again asked to explain, stammers worse and says he walked about for a few hours, met a friend, can't say who, didn't meet a friend, can't say what he did with his time, can't explain why he didn't go back for his bag, can't say what time he did get in, can't explain how he got a bruise on his forehead. In fact, can't explain himself at all. Gladys Horrocks interrogated again, says this time Phipps came in at 10:30, then admits she didn't hear him come in. Can't say why she didn't hear him come in, can't say why she said first of all that she did hear him, bursts into tears, contradicts herself. Everybody's suspicion roused. Quod 'em both. As you put it, dear, it all sounds very confusing, and not quite respectable. Poor little Mr. Phipps would be terribly upset by anything that wasn't respectable. I wonder what he did do with himself. I really don't think he was committing a murder. Besides, I believe the fellow had been dead a day or two, though it don't do to build too much on doctor's evidence. It's an entertaining little problem. Very curious, dear, but so sad about poor Sir Reuben. I must write a few lines to Lady Levy. I used to know her quite well, you know, dear, down in Hampshire, when she was a girl. Christine Ford she was then, and I remember so well the dreadful trouble there was about her marrying a Jew. That was before he made his money, of course, in that oil business out of America. The family wanted her to marry Julian Freak, who did so well afterwards and was connected with the family. But she fell in love with this Mr. Levy and eloped with him. Oh, he was very handsome then, you know, dear, in a foreign-looking way. But he hadn't any means, and the Fords didn't like his religion. Of course, we're all Jews nowadays, and they wouldn't have minded so much if he'd pretended to be something else, like that Mr. Simons we met at Mr. Porchester's, who always tells everybody that he got his nose in Italy at the Renaissance, and claims to be descended somehow or other from La Bella Simonetta. So foolish, you know, dear, as if anybody believed it. And I'm sure some Jews are very good people, and personally I'd much rather they believed something, though of course it must be very inconvenient, what with not working on Saturdays, and circumcising the poor little babies, and everything depending on the new moon and that funny kind of meat they have, with such a slang-sounding name, and never being able to have bacon for breakfast. Still, there it was, and it was much better for the girl to marry him if she was really fond of him, though I believe young Freak was really devoted to her. They're still great friends. Not that there was ever a real engagement, only a sort of understanding with her father. But he's never married, you know. Lives all by himself in that big house next to the hospital. Oh, he's very rich and distinguished now, and I know ever so many people have tried to get hold of him. There was Lady Mannering wanted him for that eldest girl of hers, though I remember saying at the time it was no use expecting a surgeon to be taken in by a figure that was all padding. They have so many opportunities of judging, you know, dear. Lady Levy seems to have had the knack of making people devoted to her. Look at the pea-green, incorruptible Levy. No, that's quite true, dear. She was a most delightful girl, and they say her daughter is just like her. I rather lost sight of them when she married, and you know your father didn't care much about business people, but I know everybody always said they were a model couple. In fact, it was a proverb that Sir Reuben was as well loved at home as he was hated abroad. I don't mean in foreign countries, you know, dear, just the proverbial way of putting things, like a saint abroad and a devil at home, only the other way on, reminding one of Pilgrim's Progress. Yes, I dare say the old man made one or two enemies. Dozens, dear. Such a dreadful place, the city, isn't it? Everybody Ishmaels together. I don't suppose Sir Reuben would like to be called that, would he? Doesn't it mean illegitimate, or not a proper Jew, anyway? I always did get confused with those Old Testament characters. Lord Peter laughed and yawned. I think I'll turn in for an hour or two. I must be back in town at 8. Parker's coming to breakfast. The Duchess looked at the clock, which marked 5 minutes to 3. I'll send you up your breakfast at 6:30, dear. I hope you'll find everything all right. I told them just to slip a hot water bottle in. Those linen sheets are so chilly. You can put it out if it's in your way. So there it is, Parker, said Lord Peter, pushing his coffee cup aside and lighting his after-breakfast pipe. You may find it leads you to something, though it don't seem to get me any further with my bathroom problem. Did you do anything more after I left? No, but I've been on the roof this morning. The deuce you have! What an energetic devil you are! I say, Parker, I think this cooperative scheme is an uncommonly good one. It's much easier to work on someone else's job than one's own. Gives one a delightful feeling of interfering and bossing about, combined with a glorious sensation that another fellow's taking all the work off one's own hands. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, what? Did you find anything? Not very much. I looked for any footmarks, of course, but naturally with all this rain there wasn't a sign. Of course, if this was a detective story, there'd have been a convenient show exactly an hour before the crime and a beautiful set of marks that could only have come there between 2 and 3 in the morning. But this being real life in a London November, you might as well expect footprints in Niagara. I searched the roofs right along and came to the jolly conclusion that any person in any blessed flat in the blessed row might have done it. All the staircases open onto the roof and the leads are quite flat. You can walk along as easily as along Shaftesbury Avenue. Still, I've got some evidence that the body did walk along there. What's that? Parker brought out his pocket-book and extracted a few shreds of material, which he laid before his friend. One was caught in the gutter just above Phipps's bathroom window, another in a crack of the stone parapet just over it, and the rest came from the chimney stack behind, where they'd caught on an iron stanchion. What do you make of them? Lord Peter scrutinised them very carefully through his lens. Interesting, damned interesting. Have you developed those plates, Bunter? He added as that discreet assistant came in with the post. Yes, my lord. Caught anything? I don't know whether to call it anything or not, my lord. I'll bring the prints in. Do. Hello, here's our advertisement about the gold chain in the Times. Oh, very nice it looks. Write, phone or call 110 Piccadilly. Perhaps it would have been safer to put a box number, though I always think that the franker you are with people, the more you're likely to deceive them. So unused is the modern world to the open hand and guileless heart. What? And you don't think the fellow who left the chain on the body is going to give himself away by coming here and inquiring about it? I don't, fathead, said Lord Peter, with the easy politeness of real aristocracy. That's why I've tried to get hold of the jeweller who originally sold the chain. See? He pointed to the paragraph. It's not an old chain, hardly worn at all. Oh, thanks, Bunter. Now, see here, Parker. These are the finger marks you noticed yesterday on the window sash and on the far edge of the bath. I'd overlooked them. I give you full credit for the discovery. I crawl, I grovel, my name is Watson, and you need not say what you were just going to say, because I admit it all. Now we shall— Hello, hello, hello. The three men stared at the photographs. The criminal climbed over the roofs in the wet, and not unnaturally got soot on his fingers. He arranged the body in the bath and wiped away all traces of himself except two, which he obligingly left to show us how to do our job. We learn from a smudge on the floor that he wore india-rubber boots, and from his admirable set of fingerprints on the edge of the bath that he had the usual number of fingers and wore rubber gloves. That's the kind of man he is. Take the fool away, gentlemen. He put the prints aside and returned to an examination of the shreds of material in his hand. Suddenly he whistled softly. "Do you make anything of these, Parker?" "Well, they seem to me the ravellings of some coarse cotton stuff. Sheet, perhaps. Improvised rope." Yes. It may be a mistake. It may be our mistake. I wonder. Tell me, do you think these tiny threads are long enough and strong enough to hang a man?" He was silent, his long eyes narrowing into slits behind the smoke of his pipe. "What do you suggest doing this morning?" "Well, it seems to me it's about time I took a hand in your job. Let's go round to Park Lane and see what larks Sir Reuben Levy was up to in bed last night. And now, Mrs. Pemming, if you would be so kind as to give me a blanket," said Mr. Bunter, coming down into the kitchen, "and permit of me hanging a sheet across the lower part of this window and drawing the screen across here, so as to shut off any reflections, if you understand me. We'll get to work." Sir Reuben Levy's cook, with her eye upon Mr. Bunter's gentlemanly and well-tailored appearance, hastened to produce what was necessary. Her visitor placed on the table a basket containing a water bottle, a silver-backed hairbrush, a pair of boots, a small roll of linoleum, and the letters of a self-made merchant to his son, bound in polished morocco. He drew an umbrella from beneath his arm and added it to the collection. He then advanced a ponderous photographic machine and set it up in the neighbourhood of the kitchen range. Then, spreading a newspaper over the fair, scrubbed surface of the table, he began to roll up his sleeves and insinuate himself into a pair of surgical gloves. Sir Reuben Levy's valet, entering at the moment and finding him thus engaged, put aside the kitchen maid, who was staring from a front-row position, and inspected the apparatus critically. Mr. Bunter nodded brightly to him and uncorked a small bottle of grey powder. "Odd sort of fish, your employer, isn't he?" said the valet carelessly. "Very singular indeed. Now, my dear," he added ingratiatingly to the parlour-maid, "I wonder if you'd just pour a little of this grey powder over the edge of the bottle while I'm holding it, and the same with this boot, yeah? At the top. There, thank you. Miss, what is your name? Price? Ah, but you've got another name besides Price, haven't you? Mabel, eh? Oh, that's a name I'm uncommonly partial to. Oh, that's very nicely done. You've a steady hand, Miss Mabel. You see that? That's the finger marks. 3 there, and 2 here, smudged over in both places. No, don't you touch them, my dear, or you'll rub the bloom off. We'll stand them up here till they're ready to have their portraits taken. Now then, let's take the hairbrush next. Perhaps, Mrs. Pemming, you'd like to lift him up very carefully by the bristles." "By the bristles, Mr. Bunter?" "If you please, Mrs. Pemming, and lay him here. Now, Miss Mabel, another little exhibition of your skill, if you please. No, we'll try lamp-black this time. Perfect. Oh, couldn't have done it better myself. Oh, now there's a beautiful set. No smudges this time. That'll interest his lordship. Now the little book. I think I'll pick that up myself, with these gloves, you see, by the edges. I'm a careful criminal, Mrs. Pemming. I don't want to leave any traces. Dust the cover all over now, Miss Mabel. This side. There, that's the way to do it. Lots of prints. No smudges. All according to plan. Oh, Please, Mr. Graves, you mustn't touch it. It's as much as my place is worth to have it touched." "Do you have to do much of this sort of thing?" inquired Mr. Graves from a superior standpoint. "Any amount," replied Mr. Bunter, with a groan calculated to appeal to Mr. Graves's heart and unlock his confidence. "If you'd kindly hold one end of this bit of linoleum, Mrs. Pemming, I'll hold up this end while Miss Mabel operates." "Yes, Mr. Graves, it's a hard life. Valeting by day and developing by night. Morning tea at any time from 6:30 to 11, and criminal investigations at all hours. Oh, it's wonderful the ideas these rich men with nothing to do get into their heads." "I wonder you stand it." "There's none of that here. A quiet, orderly, domestic life, Mr. Bunter. There's much to be said for it. Meals at regular hours, decent, respectable families to dinner, none of your painted women, and no valeting at night. There's much to be said for it. I don't hold with Hebrews as a rule, Mr. Bunter, and of course I understand that you may find it to your advantage to be in a titled family, but there's less thought of that these days. And I will say, for a self-made man, no one could call Sir Reuben vulgar. And my lady, at any rate, is county. Miss Ford she was, one of the Hampshire Fords, and both of them always most considerate." "Well, I agree with you, Mr. Graves. His lordship and me never have held with being narrow-minded." "Why, yes, my dear, of course it's a footmark. This is for washed linoleum. A good Jew can be a good man, that's what I've always said, and regular hours and considerate habits have a great deal to recommend them. Very simple in his tastes now, Sir Reuben, isn't he? For a rich man, I mean." "Very simple indeed," said the cook. "The meals he and her ladyship have when they're by themselves with Miss Rachel. Well, there now, if it wasn't for the dinners, which is always good when there's company, I'd be wasting my talents and education, if you understand me, Mr. Bunter." Mr. Bunter added the handle of the umbrella to his collection and began to pin a sheet across the window, aided by the housemaid. "Admirable! Now, if I may have this blanket on the table and another on a towel horse or something of that kind by way of a background. Oh, you're very kind, Mrs. Pemming. Oh, I wish his lordship never wanted valeting by night. Many's the time I've sat up till 3 and 4, and up again to call him early, off Sherlocking at the other end of the country, and the mud he gets into his clothes and his boots. I'm sure it's a shame, Mr. Bunter. Low, I calls it. In my opinion, police work ain't no fit occupation for a gentleman, let alone a lordship." "Everything made so difficult, too," said Mr. Bunter, nobly sacrificing his employer's character and his own feelings in a good cause. "Boots chucked into a corner, clothes hung up on the floor, as they say." "Yeah, that's often the case with these men as are born with a silver spoon in their mouths," said Mr. Graves. "Now, Sir Reuben, he's never lost his good old-fashioned habits. Clothes folded up neat, boots put out in his dressing-room so as a man could get to them in the morning. Everything made easy. He forgot, though. Oh, for clothes, not the boots. Always thoughtful for others is Sir Reuben. Oh, I hope nothing's happened to him." "Indeed, no, poor gentleman. And as for what they're saying, that he'd have gone out surreptitious-like to do something he oughtn't, well, I'll never believe it of him, Mr. Bunter, not if I was to take my dying oath upon it." "Ah," said Mr. Bunter, adjusting his arc lamps and connecting them with the nearest electric light. "And that's more than most of us could say of them that pays us." 5'10", said Lord Peter, "and not an inch more." He peered dubiously at the depression in the bedclothes, and measured it a second time with Gentleman Scout's vade-mecum. Parker entered this particular in a neat pocket-book. "I suppose," he said, "a 6'2" man might leave a 5'10" depression if he curled himself up. Have you any Scotch blood in you, Parker?" "Not that I know of. Why?" "Because of all the cautious, ungenerous, deliberate, and cold-blooded devils I know, you are the most cautious, ungenerous, deliberate, and cold-blooded. Here am I, sweating my brains out, to introduce a really sensational incident into your dull and disreputable little police investigation, and you refuse to show a single spark of enthusiasm. Well, it's no good jumping at conclusions." "Jump? You don't even crawl distantly within sight of a conclusion. I believe if you caught the cat with her head in the cream jug, you'd say it was conceivable that the jug was empty when she got there. Well, it would be conceivable, wouldn't it? Oh, curse you, said Lord Peter. He screwed his monocle into his eye and bent over the pillow, breathing hard and tightly through his nose. Here, give me the tweezers, he said presently. Good heavens, man, don't blow like that, you might be a whale. He nipped up an almost invisible object from the linen. What is it? It's a hair. Let's go and look at Levy's hats, shall we? And you might just ring for that fellow with the churchyard name. Do you mind? Mr. Graves, when summoned, found Lord Peter Wimsey squatting on the floor of the dressing-room before a row of hats arranged upside down before him. "Here you are," said that nobleman cheerfully. "Now, Graves, this is a guessing competition, a sort of three-hat trick, to mix metaphors. Here are 9 hats, including 3 top hats. Do you identify all these hats as belonging to Sir Reuben Levy? You do? Very good. Now I have 3 guesses as to which hat he wore the night he disappeared, and if I guess right, I win. If I don't, you win. See? Ready? Go. I suppose you know the answer yourself, by the way." "Do I understand your lordship to be asking which hat Sir Reuben wore when he went out on Monday night, your lordship?" "No, you don't understand a bit. I'm asking if you know. Don't tell me. I'm going to guess." "I do know, your lordship." "Well, as he was dining at the Ritz, he wore a topper. Now, here are 3 toppers. In 3 guesses, I'd be bound to hit the right one, wouldn't I? Oh, that's not very sporting. So I'll take 1 guess. It was this one." He indicated the hat next the window. "Am I right, Graves? Have I got the prize?" "That is the hat in question, my lord," said Mr. Graves, without excitement. "Thanks. That's all I wanted to know. Ask Bunter to step up, would you?" Mr. Bunter stepped up with an aggrieved air, and his usually smooth hair ruffled by the focusing cloth. "Ah, there you are, Bunter. Now look here." "Here I am, my lord," said Mr. Bunter, with respectful reproach. "But if you'll excuse me saying so, downstairs is where I ought to be, with all those young women about. They'll be fingering the evidence, my lord. I cry you mercy, but I've quarrelled hopelessly with Mr. Parker and distracted the estimable Graves. And I want you to tell me what fingerprints you've found. I shan't be happy till I get it, so don't be harsh with me, Bunter." "Well, my lord, your lordship understands I haven't photographed them yet, but I won't deny that their appearance is interesting, my lord. The little book off the night-table, my lord, has only the marks of 1 set of fingers, and there's a little scar on the right thumb which makes them easily recognised. The hairbrush, too, my lord, has only the same set of marks. The umbrella, the tooth-glass, and the boots all have 2 sets. The hand with the scarred thumb, which I take to be Sir Reuben's, my lord, and a set of smudges superimposed upon them, if I may put it that way, my lord, which may or may not be the same hand, in rubber gloves. I could tell you better when I've got the photographs made, to measure them, my lord. The linoleum in front of a washstand is very gratifying indeed, my lord, if you'll excuse my mentioning it. Besides the marks of Sir Reuben's boots, which your lordship pointed out, there's the print of a man's naked foot, a much smaller one, my lord, not much more than a 10-inch sock, I should say, if you ask me." Lord Peter's face became irradiated with almost a dim religious light. "A mistake, a little one, but he can't afford it." "When was the linoleum washed last, Bunter?" "Monday morning, my lord. The housemaid did it and remembered to mention it. Only remark she's made yet, and it's to the point. The other domestics—" His features expressed disdain. "What did I say, Parker? 5'10" and not an inch longer. And he didn't dare use the hairbrush. Beautiful, but he had to risk the top hat. A gentleman can't walk home in the rain late at night without a hat, you know, Parker. Look, what do you make of it? 2 sets of fingerprints on everything but the book and the brush, 2 sets of feet on the linoleum, and 2 kinds of hair in the hat." He lifted the top hat to the light and extracted the evidence with tweezers. "Think of it, Parker. To remember the hairbrush and forget the hat, to remember his fingers all the time and to make that one careless step on the telltale linoleum. Here they are, you see. Black hair and tan hair. Black hair in the bowler and the Panama, and black and tan in last night's topper. And then, just to make certain that we're on the right track, just one little auburn hair on the pillow. On this pillow, Parker, which isn't quite in the right place. Oh, it almost brings tears to my eyes. Do you mean to say, said the detective slowly. I mean to say, said Lord Peter, that it was not Sir Reuben Levy whom the cook saw last night on the doorstep. I say that it was another man, perhaps a couple of inches shorter, who came here in Levy's clothes and let himself in with Levy's latchkey. Oh, he was a bold, cunning devil, Parker. He had on Levy's boots and every stitch of Levy's clothing down to the skin. He had rubber gloves on his hands, which he never took off. And he did everything he could to make us think that Levy slept here last night. He took his chances and won. He walked upstairs, he undressed, he even washed and cleaned his teeth, although he didn't use the hairbrush for fear of leaving red hairs in it. He had to guess what Levy did with boots and clothes. One guess was wrong and the other right, as it happened. The bed must look as if it had been slept in, so he gets in and lies there in the victim's very pyjamas. Then, in the morning sometime, probably in the deadest hour between 2 and 3, he gets up, dresses himself in his own clothes, which he has brought with him in a bag, and creeps downstairs. If anybody wakes, he is lost. But he is a bold man, and he takes his chance. He knows that people do not wake as a rule, and they don't wake. He opens the street door, which he left on the latch when he came in. He listens for the stray passer-by or the policeman on his beat. He slips out. He pulls the door quietly to with the latchkey. He walks briskly away in rubber-soled shoes. He's the kind of criminal who isn't complete without rubber-soled shoes. And in a few minutes he's at Hyde Park Corner. And after that he paused and added, he did all that, and unless he had nothing at stake, he had everything at stake. Either Sir Reuben Levy had been spirited away for some silly practical joke, or the man with the auburn hair has the guilt of murder upon his soul. Dear me, you're very dramatic about it. Lord Peter passed his hand rather wearily over his hair. My true friend, he murmured, in a voice surcharged with emotion. You recall me to the nursery rhymes of my youth, the sacred duty of flippancy. There was an old man of Whitehaven who danced a quadrille with a raven. But they said it's absurd to encourage that bird. So they smashed that old man of Whitehaven. Oh, yes, that's the correct attitude, Parker. Poor old Buffer spirited away. Such a joke. And I don't believe he'd hurt a fly himself. Oh, that makes it funnier. Do you know, Parker, I don't care frightfully about this case after all. Which? This or yours? Both. I say, Parker, shall we go quietly home and have lunch and go to the Colosseum? You can if you like, but you forget I do this for my bread and butter. And I haven't even that excuse. Well, what's the next move? What would you do in my case? I'd do some good hard grind. I'd distrust every bit of work Sugg ever did, and I'd get the family history of every tenant of every flat in Queen Caroline Mansions. I'd examine all their box rooms and rooftops, and then I'd inveigle them into conversations and suddenly bring in the words body and pince-nez and see if they wriggled. Like those modern psycho what's-their-names. You would you? Well, we've exchanged cases, you know, so just toddle off and do it. I'm going to have a jolly time at Wyndham's. Parker made a grimace. Well, I don't suppose you'd ever do it, so I'd better. You'll never become a professional till you learn to do a little work, Whimsy. How about lunch? Oh, I'm invited out. I'll run round and change at the club. Can't feed with Freddie Arbuthnot in these bags. Panther? Yes, my lord. Pack up if you're ready and come round and wash my face and hands for me at the club. Work here for another 2 hours, my lord. Can't do with less than 30 minutes exposure. The current's none too strong. You see how I'm bullied by my own man, Parker? Well, I must bear it, I suppose. Ta-ta. He whistled his way downstairs. The conscientious Mr. Parker, with a groan, settled down to a systematic search through Sir Reuben Levy's papers, with the assistance of a plate of ham sandwiches and a bottle of Bass. Lord Peter and the Honourable Freddie Arbuthnot, looking together like an advertisement for gents' trouserings, strolled into the dining room at Wyndham's. "Haven't seen you for an age," said the Honourable Freddie. "What have you been doing with yourself?" "Oh, fooling about," said Lord Peter languidly. "Thick or clear, sir?" inquired the waiter of the Honourable Freddie. "Which'll you have, Whimsy?" said that gentleman, transferring the burden of selection to his guest. "They're both equally poisonous." "Well, clear's less trouble to lick out of a spoon." "Clear." "Consommé Polnay," agreed the waiter. "Very nice, sir." Conversation languished until the Honourable Freddie found a bone in the filleted sole and sent for the head waiter to explain its presence. When this matter had been adjusted, Lord Peter found energy to say, "Sorry to hear about your governor, old man." "Yes, poor old buffer. They say he can't last long now." "What?" "Oh, the Montrachet 08. There's nothing fit to drink in this place." After this deliberate insult to a noble vintage, there was a further pause, till Lord Peter said, "How's change?" "Oh, rotten," said the Honourable Freddie. He helped himself gloomily to salmi of game. "Can I do anything?" asked Lord Peter. "Oh, no, thanks. Very decent of you. It'll pan out in time." "This isn't a bad salmi," said Lord Peter. "I've eaten worse," admitted his friend. "What about those Argentines?" inquired Lord Peter. "Here, waiter, there's a bit of cork in my glass." "Cork!" cried the Honourable Freddie, with something approaching animation. "You'll hear about this, waiter. It's an amazing thing a fellow who's paid to do the job can't manage to take a cork out of a bottle." "What do you say?" "Argentines. Pooh, gone to hell. Old Levy bunking off like that's knocked the bottom out of the market." "You don't say so. What do you suppose happened to the old man?" "Oh, cursed if I know. Knocked on the head by the bears, I should think. Perhaps he's gone off on his own. Double life, you know. Giddy old blighters, some of these city men." "Oh, no. No, hang it all, Whimsy, I wouldn't care to say that. He's a decent old domestic bird, and his daughter's a charming girl. Besides, he's straight enough. He'd do you down fast enough, but he wouldn't let you down. Old Anderson's badly cut up about it." "Who's Anderson?" "Chap with property out there. He belongs here. He was going to meet Levy on Tuesday. He's afraid those railway people will get in now. Then it'll be all up." "Who's running the railway people over here?" "Yankee blighter, John P. Milligan. He's got an option, or says he has. You can't trust these brutes." "Can't Anderson hold on?" "Anderson isn't Levy. Hasn't got the shekels. Besides, he's the only one. Levy covers the ground. He could boycott Milligan's beastly railway if he liked. That's where he's got the pull, you see." "I believe I met the Milligan man once somewhere." "Ain't he a hulking brute with black hair and a beard?" "Oh, you're thinking of somebody else. Milligan don't stand any higher than I do, unless you call 5'10" hulking. And he's bald, anyway." Lord Peter considered this over the gorgonzola. "Didn't know Levy had a charming daughter." "Oh, yes," said the Honourable Freddie with an elaborate detachment. "Met her and Mamma last year abroad. That's how I got to know the old man. He's been very decent. Let me into his Argentine business on the ground floor, don't you know." "Well, you might do worse. Money is money, ain't it? And Lady Levy's quite a redeeming point. At least, my mother knew her people." "Oh, she's all right. And the old man's nothing to be ashamed of nowadays. He's self-made, of course, but he don't pretend to be anything else. No side. Toddles off to business on a 96 bus every morning. Can't make up my mind to taxes, my boy, he says. I had to look at every halfpenny when I was a young man, and I can't get out of the way of it now. Though if he's taking his family out, nothing's too good. Rachel, that's the girl, always laughs at the old man's little economies." "I suppose they've sent for Lady Levy." "I suppose so. I'd better pop round and express sympathy or something, what? Wouldn't look well not to, would you think?" "It's deuced awkward. What am I to say?" "I don't think it matters much what you say," said Lord Peter helpfully. "I should ask if you can do anything." "Oh, thanks," said the lover. "I will. Energetic young man, Count on me, always at your service. Ring me up any time of day or night. That's the line to take, don't you think? That's the idea. Mr. John P. Milligan, the London representative of the Great Milligan Railroad and Shipping Company, was dictating code cables to his secretary in an office in Lombard Street when a card was brought up to him, bearing the simple legend, Lord Peter Wimsey, Marlborough Club. Mr. Milligan was annoyed at the interruption, but, like many of his nation, if he had a weak point, it was the British aristocracy. He postponed for a few minutes the elimination from a map of a modest but promising farm, and directed that the visitor should be shown up. "Good afternoon," said that nobleman, ambling genially in. "It's most uncommonly good of you to let me come round wasting your time like this. I'll try not to be too long about it, though I'm not awfully good at coming to the point. My brother never would let me stand for the county, you know. Said I wandered on so nobody'd know what I was talking about." "Well, I'm pleased to meet you, Lord Wimsey. Won't you take a seat?" "Thanks. But I'm not the Duke, you know. That's my brother Denver. My name's Peter. Silly name, I always think, so old world and full of homely virtue and that sort of thing. But my godfathers and godmothers in my baptism are responsible for that, I suppose, officially, which is rather hard on them, you know, as they didn't actually choose it. But we always have a Peter after the third Duke, who betrayed 5 kings, somewhere about the time of the Roses. Come to think of it, that ain't anything to be proud of. Still, one has to make the best of it." Mr. Milligan, thus ingeniously placed at that disadvantage which attends ignorance, manoeuvred for position, and offered his interrupter a Corona. "Thanks awfully, though you really mustn't tempt me to staying here babbling all afternoon. By Jove, Mr. Milligan, if you offer people such comfortable chairs and cigars like these, I wonder they don't come and live in your office." He added mentally, "I wish to goodness I could get these long-toed boots off you. How's a man to know the size of your feet? And a head like a potato. It's enough to make one swear." "Say now, Lord Peter, can I do anything for you?" Well, do you know, I'm wondering if you would. It's a damn cheek to ask you, but the fact is, it's my mother, you know. Wonderful woman, but don't realise what it means, demands on the time of a busy man like you. We don't understand hustle over here, you know, Mr. Milligan. Oh, now, don't you mention that. I'd be surely charmed to do anything to oblige the Duchess." He felt a momentary qualm as to whether a duke's mother were also a duchess, but breathed more freely as Lord Peter went on. "Thanks, that's uncommonly good of you. Well, now it's like this. My mother, most energetic, self-sacrificing woman, don't you see, is thinking of getting up some sort of charity bazaar down at Denver this winter, in aid of a church roof, you know. It's a very sad case, Mr. Milligan. Fine old antique, early English windows and decorated angel roof and all that, all tumbling to pieces, rain pouring in and so on. Vicar catching rheumatism at early service, owing to the draught blowing in over the altar. You know the sort of thing. They've got a man down, starting on it, little beggar called Thipps, lives with an aged mother in Battersea. Vulgar little beast, but quite good on angel roofs and things, I'm told." At this point Lord Peter watched his interlocutor narrowly, but finding that this rigmarole produced in him no reaction more startling than polite interest tinged with faint bewilderment, he abandoned this line of investigation and proceeded. "I say I beg your pardon frightfully. I'm afraid I'm being beastly long-winded. Fact is, my mother is getting up this bazaar, and she thought it would be awfully interesting as a sideshow to have some lectures, sort of little talks, you know, by eminent businessmen of all nations. How I did it kind of touch, you know, a drop of oil with Mr. Rockefeller, Cash and Conscience by Cadbury's Cocoa, and so on. It would interest people down there no end. You see, all my mother's friends will be there, and with none of us any money, not what you'd call money, I mean. I expect our incomes wouldn't pay your telephone calls, would they? But we like awfully to hear about people who do make money. Gives us a sort of uplifting feeling, don't you know? Well, anyway, I mean that my mother would be frightfully pleased and grateful to you, Mr. Milligan, if you'd come down and give us a few words as a representative American. It needn't take more than 10 minutes or so, you know. The local people can't understand much beyond shooting and fishing and hunting, and my mother's crowd can't keep their minds on anything more than 10 minutes anyway. But we'd really appreciate it very much if you come down and stay a day or two, and just give us a little breezy word on the almighty dollar." "Why, yes. I'd like to, Lord Peter. It's kind of a duchess to suggest it. It's a very sad thing when these fine old antiques begin to wear out. I'll come with great pleasure, and perhaps you'd be kind enough to accept a little donation to the Restoration Fund." This unexpected development nearly brought Lord Peter up standing. To pump, by means of an ingenious lie, a hospitable gentleman whom you're inclined to suspect of a peculiarly malicious murder, and to accept from him in the course of the proceedings a large cheque for a charitable object, has something about it unpalatable to any but the hardened Secret Service agent. Lord Peter temporised. "That's awfully decent of you. I'm sure they'd be no end grateful. But you'd better not give it to me, you know. I might spend it, or lose it. I'm not very reliable, I'm afraid. The vicar is the right person, the Reverend Constantine Throgmorton, St. John before the Latin Gate Vicarage, Duke's Denver. If you like to send it there—" "I will. Will you write it out for £1,000, Scoot, in case it slips my mind later?" The secretary, a sandy-haired young man with a long chin and no eyebrows, silently did as he was requested. Lord Peter looked from the bald head of Mr. Milligan to the red head of the secretary, hardened his heart, and tried again. "I'm no end grateful to you, Mr. Milligan, and so my mother will be when I tell her. I'll let you know the date of the bazaar. It's not quite settled yet, and I've got to see some other businessmen, don't you know. I thought of asking Lord Northcliffe to represent English newspapers, you know, and a friend of mine promises me a lead in German. Very interesting, if there ain't too much feeling against it down in the country. And I'd better get Rothschild, I suppose, to do the Hebrew point of view. I thought of asking Levy, you know, only he's floated off in this inconvenient sort of way." "Yes, that's a very curious thing. Though I don't mind saying, Lord Peter, it's a convenience to me. He had a cinch on my railroad combine. But I'd nothing against him personally, and if he turns up, after I've brought off a little deal I've got on, well, I shall be happy to give him the right hand of welcome." A vision passed through Lord Peter's mind of Sir Reuben kept somewhere in custody till a financial crisis was over. This was exceedingly possible, and far more agreeable than his earlier conjecture. It also agreed better with the impression he was forming of Mr. Milligan. "Well, it's a rum go, but I dare say he had his reasons. Much better not to inquire into people's reasons, you know, what? Especially as a police friend of mine who's connected with the case says the old Johnny dyed his hair before he went." Out of the tail of his eye, Lord Peter saw the red-headed secretary add up 5 columns of figures simultaneously and jot down the answer. "Dyed his hair, did he?" "Dyed it red." The secretary looked up. "Odd thing is, they can't lay hands on the bottle. Something fishy there, don't you think? What?" The secretary's interest seemed to have evaporated. He inserted a fresh sheet into his loose-leaf ledger and carried forward a row of digits from a preceding page. "I dare say there's nothing in it," said Lord Peter, rising to go. "Well, it's uncommonly good of you to be bothered with me like this, Mr. Milligan. My mother will be no end pleased. She'll write to you about the date." "I'm charmed, very pleased to meet you." Mr. Scoot rose silently to open the door, uncoiling as he did so a portentous length of thin leg, hitherto hidden by the desk. With a mental sigh, Lord Peter estimated him at 6'4". "It's a pity I can't put Scoot's head on Milligan's shoulders," said Lord Peter, emerging into the swirl of the city. "And what will my mother say?"